Hi, this is Gareth Hines, and I'm here to talk to you about how I create the rough layouts for my graphic novels, specifically the Iliad, coming in March from Candlewick Press. So here I am in Adobe InDesign. That's the program I use to do the rough layouts. There's a bunch of reasons for that, which I'll talk about. It's not exactly a drawing program. It's really meant to be a page layout program. But there's a freehand pencil tool, and that's what I'm using to draw with. And what I'm drawing on is my Fujitsu tablet PC, which has a digitizer built into the screen. So with a special pen, you can draw on it very precisely. And so I'm drawing the characters. I've got my rough layouts with some text already dropped in. I'll show you how that works in a few minutes. But basically what I'm playing around with at this stage is the angles that I want and the what moments I want to show for each piece of text. And this is in real time. This is how fast I draw. But I am going to speed this up in a second here so that we can go through more of it. So after I draw something like this, each of those lines is actually a vector object, and I group them together so that the character can be nudged around, scaled a little bit. And you can also kind of, you can adjust these lines because they are vectors. You can grab control points and kind of tweak them a little bit. But I try not to get into too much of that at this stage. These are just still rough sketches. So there you can see I selected all the lines, I grouped them, I scaled this face of Achilles down a little bit. Then I dragged it off to the side because I wanted to try something a little bit different. And what I thought I might actually try is reusing this first drawing, but showing Achilles in the same panel. So we're going to be looking over Achilles' shoulder as Priam grasps his knees. This is a scene near the end of the book where Priam, the king of Troy, has gone to beg Achilles to return the body of his son Hector. And now I'm going to go back to the previous page where I had kind of left some blank space that I wasn't sure what to do with. And I think I'm going to draw kind of a zoomed out view of Priam as he enters Achilles' hut and gets ready to put his hood back. Priam has entered Achilles' compound with the help of the god Hermes, who sort of disguised him up to this point, and now he kind of magically appears in the hut and puts his hand on Achilles' knees, which is how the Greeks would signify that they were begging for a favor. You can see the rest of that page there of him entering the compound. And these are some of Achilles' men, sort of cooking dinner. And then maybe I'm going to drag that first drawing I did off to the side and maybe try kind of an intermediate shot, like a medium shot of Priam grasping Achilles' knees. So I'm always playing around with, again, what moments am I going to show in what order? And so here's several different possible treatments for that moment. And I'll look at them and say, okay, well, which one do I like, or do I need all of those? Do I need any of those? Maybe I could just use this shot with both characters and jump right to that. That'll allow me to put a little bit more of the dialogue on this page, which is kind of handy. And so in comics, the sequence of images and the spatial relationships between the images and between the image and the text is really what creates the storytelling. So that's what I'm spending most of my time on, actually. The drawings happen pretty quickly, and then I play around with all those different elements. And these elements are actually all on separate layers, so I can also kind of control what I'm selecting and what I'm working on. You can see my layers palette here. There's a whole bunch of different layers, some for the vector art, for the text, for the speech balloons, the panel borders. Sound effects are on a separate layer. And I can show and hide different layers. I can lock different layers. It gives me a lot of power. So here is the next page, and here is what it looks like when I'm just dragging the text onto the page. So I have a very rough draft of the script, and I grab a chunk of text and just kind of drag it in there, paste it in, and I'm just kind of guessing at where these chunks of text are going to go. In fact, I'm going to just drag it off to the bottom there and start drawing. And so this is the moment where Priam has kind of made his appeal, and specifically he has reminded Achilles that Achilles' own father is racked with grief, waiting for him to return from war, and he probably never will. And that Priam is basically in that same situation, except that his son is definitely dead. He doesn't even have any hope. And this appeal reaches Achilles. And so this moment, the reason I use the same shot twice, focusing on his eyes, is that spatially I'm zooming in to really emphasize the eyes. And by using that same shot twice, it draws the focus to what changes from one panel to the next. And what changes is that he closes his eyes and tears leak out. So that really focuses on the emotion. And then in the next panel, we have him grasping Priam's hand in this gesture of kind of acceptance, generosity, reconciliation. And then in the next panel, we're going to focus on a close-up of Achilles' face as he responds to Priam. So this speech that Achilles gives is about the mythological idea that Zeus has two jars in his palace. One is full of joys and one is full of sorrows, and he mixes them equally in the lives of mortals. And so Priam has had much joy in his life. He's had this incredible life up to the point where the Greeks showed up. And now his life is all sorrows. And so is Achilles' father, had the same thing. He had a very great life up until Achilles went off to war. And now, he also is in sorrow. And Achilles also, his life has been mostly sorrow since he came to Troy. And so I'm going to actually draw a shot of Achilles' father sort of waiting for Achilles to come home, standing on this hillside in Phthia, which is a very difficult to pronounce country where Achilles comes from. And of course, he's going to be waiting in vain, because we know that Achilles' destiny is to die at Troy, or he can return home, but his name will be forgotten, and he has chosen the path of glory and revenge. So I'm going to wrap up there. Again, there's lots more videos of my process on YouTube, and the Iliad is coming March 2019 from Candlewick Press. Hope you enjoyed watching. Thanks very much.